Have you ever seen an image of strength? Like this. A picture of power. Like this. A portrait of courage. Like this. Ask yourself these questions, because the answers tell you how superhuman this man really was. As any sport Jim Brown played, he dominated. His NFL career began in 1957, and he played in the league for 9 years, absolutely dominating the sport and rewriting the record book, setting a new standard for how a running back could rule the game with a combination of speed, force, and will.
This is Jim Brown, the most devastating ball carrier in the history of football.
He made up his mind to do it. He was going to do it. You couldn't knock him off his feet.
He always shocked everybody how fast he was.
Power. I mean, he had power. You ain't see nobody knock him down. Look at the film. You don't see nobody knock him back. You see him go in the stacks and he come out.
All you need to know about his toughness.
Nobody could hurt him. Nobody could touch him. Nobody was better. He proved it every Sunday.
people still compare him to players that play today.
Do you feel like some way, somehow, he's impacted or affected your ability to play sport?
My first memories of Jim Brown was in high school when I put number 32 on my back because of Jim Brown. I wanted to be like Jim Brown.
Me, Ronnie Lott, Dennis Smith, we went to his house and we played basketball with him. And I remember we began to play well. And you can see Jim increase the intensity.
My first meeting of Jim Brown was at a restaurant on Sunset. And I think, my first year in the league. And everybody was out there talking, Jim Brown, Jim Brown, Jim Brown. And he walked up, he said, how you doing, Eric? I said, how you doing, Mr. Brown? Pleasure meeting you, because I was a rookie and I was a young guy. And he was like an icon, like, man, that's Jim Brown. Golly, he shook my hand.
To me, Jim Brown was like a myth. You heard about this man, you saw him on TV acting, you watched him play, and every highlight they showed, it was like guys hit Jim and just fell down.
My dad always told me about him. I kept hearing that, not only were running backs, measured to him, the entire league was. It's like, forget about running backs. It's like every player is measured, to Jim Brown, and because he was the touchstone, he was the measuring stick. He was the guy that was the best player ever lived. So.
Him being my idol really helped inspire me because of what he stood for.
And you think about all the things that he had to deal with and still be as great as he was. I think the question was asked about, why is he such an icon? And I think it is because he was a man first.
They know you're getting the ball. They know. And to lead the league in rushing, 8 out of the 9 years that you are in it.
He was a track star. He played basketball.
Lacrosse.
He played lacrosse. He's one of the few guys that are multiple, Hall of Fame scholars.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Everything he did it phenomenally.
So we have to combine.
You have to combine.
You
can't take one.
Eric said it right there.
We have to combine some players.
You have to combine all the players.
You have to combine
to really get, I think, what Jim had.
I think that's a fair statement.
Seriously.
Yeah.
There's a reason they call him the greatest that ever played.
When I think of Jim Brown, I remember when I was in college, you're watching those Cleveland Browns, watching Jimmy Brown, man. He was absolutely sensational.
Vicious, ferocious, just dominant, elusive, just incredible. The greatest of all time.
I used to marvel at his effort out on the field, how he could maintain his balance, dusting people off. He was a great football player.
A lot of people feel like he's the greatest running back, maybe the greatest football player that ever played in the NFL. I'm not going to argue with any of those assessments.
When you think about Jim Brown and his running style and how he played, how would he fit into the league today?
Well, I think that Jim could play. He can play in any generation.
Just as he was the greatest player then, he would find a way to be the greatest player today.
Now, we're talking about still the greatest player that ever played, right? Now, we're just bringing him into this generation.
Yeah.
And so we're saying he's still the greatest player that ever played?
We haven't really seen Jim play, firsthand. But he is still considered the best player to ever touch the field in our eyes. And I just think for you to be that great, that people don't even have to see you play and still consider you the best to ever do it.
He was a football god.
I just think about the city of Cleveland and what they've endured. The last championship that the city of Cleveland got to embrace is the 1964 championship with Jim Brown.
Absolutely right, because he is their champion. They vicariously lived through him. Sure.
Not just the Browns, but the Indians and the Cavs. They are chasing the 1964 championship that Jim Brown brought to that city. They remember that one championship, and I believe it means so much to that city.
You have it with Michael Jordan. I think that the city of Chicago benefited greatly from Michael Jordan just playing in Chicago. In the same way, I think Cleveland really benefited from Jim playing in Cleveland.
I never forget at the Hall of Fame induction, after my speech, Jim Brown was sitting in the back, and during the break, he's leaning back and he said, "Come here." Being that I had gone long on my speech, I didn't know what this was going to be about. But he said to me, he leaned up in his seat and he said, "That was awesome. That was really great." Man, I got chills when he said that because, hearing that from the great Jim Brown was remarkable.
Man amongst boys. There was nothing that anybody could do to stop him. And think about the old Tecmo Bowl games, man. When guys like that got the ball on Tecmo Bowl, man, then all the Tecmo Bowl players just went flying because you couldn't stop them. And that's the way it was with him in real life.
We went up to spend time being able to get to know him. At the time, was in awe of the fact that it was Jim Brown. Secondly, I couldn't believe it because I thought there is no way I could tackle Jim Brown, even at the age that he was at. And I realized that here was a person that represented more than just a game.
Legend, pioneer, somebody who meant a lot to this game, both in terms of the African-American community and pioneering us into this game and taking a stand for us, going out there and battling through so much adversity that I can't even imagine, but doing it the right way, doing it like a pro, setting a phenomenal example that we are challenged every day to follow.
He changed and influenced the definition of what black men could be, what they were about, or what they should aspire to. He simply stood up and was a model for what so many of us aspire to become and what we aspire to for young black men in this society.
The GOAT, greatest to ever play the game, Jim Brown. Jim, winning the championship or league MVP, better accomplishment for you?
Come on, man. Are you kidding? 1964 world champions.
All sports, you think in every sport, any sport, if it's hockey, soccer, basketball, baseball, it's always one guy that says this, number one. And for us in football, it always comes back to you. 50 years later.
I think we all look at Jim as the godfather of football. There's so much respect and reverence for who he is as a man and what he was able to accomplish throughout the game for the period of time that he played. I don't think the modern day player or the modern day fan truly understands that this man only played for a short period of time and walked away from the game at the height of his young career and changed gears.
Jim Brown, the greatest player to ever play in the NFL. He was one of those guys that really transcended the game.
We are here because of the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Jim Brown.
The first player that we introduce in the NFL 100 all-time team, Jim Brown from the Cleveland Browns. He led the NFL in rushing in 8 of his 9 seasons. He retired as the NFL's all-time leading rusher and led the Browns to the 1964 National Football League Championship.
If this show had been called the NFL 1 instead of 100, we might have the same guest.
Jim, I've admired you for my entire life, and certainly when I was the coach of the Cleveland Browns, it was such a blessing for me to get to know you, and you had such an impact on my coaching career, taught me a lot. In observing you as a player, you were obviously the greatest player, could have played in any era, probably at any position, really. There's nobody other than you that should be the first person in this group.
It was like a different sort of being was playing football with some young kids out on the field.
And on top of that, then Jim would outrun anybody who was chasing him. So it was the power, the balance, and then just pure speed. He was faster than everybody.
And the wiggle.
How are you, Emmett? Good to see you here.
I'm good, Rich. How are you, man?
Well, I would love to say I'm as happy as you, but you're the one sitting next to Jim Brown, not only physically right here, but your plaques are right next to each other on the NFL 100 all-time team wall. This is pretty cool.
To be right here with the legend himself, man who inspires so many other players to come from behind him, and he paved the way for a lot of us. And whether it's passing the torch from him to Walter and then down the line, I mean, it's just so many great players that have come behind Jim, and he set the standard pretty high.
My dad would always just be talking about something, and he'd go off into how Jim Brown was the greatest. Didn't matter what he was talking about.
First, I want to say hello to the greatest running back that ever lived, the number 1 running back who ever lived, Mr. Jim Brown. And now I want to introduce you to the 3rd best running back that ever lived, Barry Sanders.
You never ran out of bounds. Now, you purposely. Why not? I mean, there would be times where you think that there was no way you could get the extra yardage. You'd save a little wear and tear on your body. Why didn't you just sort of glide out of bounds?
Let me be emphatic about that. Those excuses for what I would consider weaker minds. You never assume you can't do something. If a 185-pound cornerback is going to make me go out of bounds, I'm going to be building up his ego. I'm going to try to drop a forearm into his chest. And sometimes when you do that, miracles happen. So I can't turn it on and turn it off.
I never saw a running back use his arms the way you did. And not only the stiff arm, I mean, you had a way of, when a guy would hit you, you're using your arm here like it was like a crowbar that you could pry him off your legs. Was that something that you developed instinctively?
Well, my arms were like my protectors and my weapons. You don't want tacklers to get your arms spread and put their shoulders up in here on you, put the helmet in your chest. You want to put something in front of that. You want to hit. So I got good at it, and I started working on it all the time. During practice, I'd work on it.
It's the way you would walk back to the huddle. Now, in talking to you now, there must have been a scientific or a reason why you did that.
Let's say that I go down and I'm hit and the wind's knocked out of me. And I lay down there and I get up slow after I had been jumping up. The sharks in the water say, uh-oh, this guy's bleeding. They attack you. If you get up slow each time, that's the constant. And then when you come out blasting, he gets up slow and he blasts. So they don't know when the wind is knocked out of me. They don't know when I'm hurt. They don't know when I'm dizzy. They don't know anything. And therefore, I give them no advantage.
You gang tackled him. You did everything. Give him extracurriculars. He'd get up slow, look at you, and walk back to that huddle and wouldn't say a word. Just come at you again and again.
He give you the same look, same smile, come right back at you the next time.
You just say, what the hell? What's wrong with this guy? For heaven's sake, when is he going to stop carrying the ball? How much more can he take?
Playing possum, and I knew it. I used to tell him, I said, man, get up and get back to the huddle. You're running over people out here.
Couldn't intimidate him. Sam Huff tried that, but it didn't work.
You hit him, you knock him down, he would get up, he'd look you straight in the eye and he'd say, nice tackle, Big Sam. And you'd say, you want to be mad at him. You want to be angry at the guys you're playing against.
So way to go, Deke. Come at it back. You hate that. I'd rather him call me a nasty name.
You used to talk slow. Sam, why y'all do this to me? The next play, he'd run 80 yards. He was just a horse. That's what he was.
Why was it so important to you to conceal any injuries that you had? Your greatest season, I think you played with a broken toe.
Well, I had 1 year I had a broken wrist, I had broken fingers, I had a broken toe. Because I was a guy that they looked forward to never getting hurt, never getting tired.
Leo Murphy, the trainer, told me that one day I said, I'll be here at 7:30 to get some treatment. He said, you can't come at 7:30, 8:30. I said, well, aren't you going to be here? He said, I'll be here, but we've got someone else coming at 7:30. Well, after I retired, he told me it was Jim Brown.
They would go tell their teammates, this is a strange guy. He doesn't want to go in the training room. He don't get hurt. He's strange. And that helped me because it caused a kind of mystery and it gave me a psychological advantage.